All right, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay? Think so? All right. Well, just tell you a little bit about our HomeNE program. Levi was supposed to do it, but he didn't get here on time, so I'm going to try to fill in. The HomeNE program was established in 2017, modeled after a similar program in South Dakota. It's creating a housing network, helping communities develop capacity to recognize their housing needs and providing tools needed to move forward. The South Central Economic Development District is the lead agent, and we kicked off this program with the HomeNE Learning Journey in December. Approximately 40 community leaders and housing resource providers from Nebraska and South Dakota came together to learn innovative approaches to housing development and redevelopment. We also just hosted in April a learning gathering in St. Paul, and you'll hear more about that today. Today is the fourth monthly call for the Online Learning Network to foster interaction, engagement, and skill building for local housing development leaders. This network is open for statewide participation. As you can see in the map in front of you, we've had some pretty good participation in the past. We're pushing to provide the richest and most beneficial experience to all participants. The HomeNE Learning Network will continue offering monthly interactive web calls and webinars the third Thursday of each month. In 2018, we will also host 2 annual gatherings. Each HomeNE event is intended to provide experiential learning to empower each participant to immediately apply what they've learned. So with that, welcome to today's call. Sorry, hold on just a moment. All right, so let's jump in and see who's joining us today. I think we've tested the audio with a few of you, but this is a good opportunity just to make sure everybody's up and running. When I call your name, please open up your individual microphone and introduce yourself, your community, and your occupation or role. If you're having problems with your microphone, you could also use the chat box, and that's another good way to interact. So first off, do we have Lori from Alma online? I don't think I see her here. Or what about Cheryl from Arnold? Okay. Megan from Binkelman? Craig from Bradshaw? Abby from Columbus?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. I'm still working on this headset. Yes, Abby Lindgren. I live in Columbus. I work for Nebraska Public Power District, and I work in the Economic Development Department.
Great. Okay. What about Lori from Dodge? Raquel from Franklin? Andrea from Grant?
Yes, I'm here. I work at Pinnacle Bank as a mortgage officer, and I'm also on the Grant City Council.
Great. Sue from Gretna?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Sue Kosis. I am the CRA officer and the fair lending officer here for Pinnacle Bank, and I help coordinate a lot of the CRA activities.
What about Diane from Hebron? Newton, Nebraska, sorry. Okay, Kelsey from Henderson. Okay, Bobby from Kearney. Paul from Kearney. Valentina from Lincoln. David from Lincoln. Krista from Lincoln. Oh, I don't think I can hear you there.
There you go.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Krista Metcher. I'm the senior single family housing specialist with USDA Rural Development here in Lincoln in the Federal Building.
And Krista's also our speaker for today, so looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what about Matthew from Minden? Gabriel from Neely? Sarah from Palmer?
Sarah Davis from the Village of Palmer. I am the clerk and treasurer.
Great. Okay, what about Dana from Ravenna?
Hi, I'm Dana Dennison. Obviously, I live in Ravenna, and I'm the Economic Development Director in Ravenna.
Okay, what about Jay from Red Cloud? Gwen from Schuyler? Kim from Scottsbluff? Dwight from Shelton? Or Audrey from Shelton? Have Judy from St. Paul? Pat from Stromsburg? And Dorothy from Trumbull? Okay, and I have a Joni Jesperson. I don't know if she's on the line. I know there's a couple of callers, and I'm not sure. And Christy McClung.
Hi, I'm Christy McClung from Big Springs, Nebraska. I work for the State of Nebraska Department of Economic Development as a housing specialist.
Great. Oh, and I got a message here from Judy Johnson. She's a loan officer at Homestead Bank in St. Paul. Great. Is there anyone else on the line that hasn't had an opportunity to check in?
I'm not sure. This is Sue Kosis. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
All right, well, before we get started with the presentations, here's an overview of the agenda. If you were unable to attend the gathering in St. Paul, we're going to speak with Lori Ferguson. She's going to provide us with a few highlights that we learned about the community. We'll also have the opportunity to hear from a couple of attendees and their experience at the gathering. Once that's complete, we'll hand things over to Krista Metcher with USDA Rural Development to discuss their programs. We'll then open up the room for any questions or discussion. Finally, we'll debrief on the webinar and share some final thoughts for deeper learning. We'll give you the opportunity to ask questions throughout presentations. If you have questions about the HomeNE, the gathering, or USDA resources, please feel free to either type them into the box or you can unmute yourself during the question and answer after the presentation. So with that, go ahead and turn it over to Lori.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, thank you. The joys of live broadcast when your phone rings. Francis is probably feeling very popular at the moment, but I am Lori Ferguson. I'm with South Central Economic Development District here in Holdridge, and I've been asked to share a little bit about our gathering and an aha moment that I took away from the event. We gathered in St. Paul April 25th and 26th, and we kind of patterned it after Dakota Resources. They do something similar. If you were on the phone call last month, we had Mike Knudsen with Dakota Resources, and he shared a little bit about their gatherings, but we took Dakota Resources and added our own Husker flair and came up with our own version of a gathering in St. Paul. We had about 20 different community members, bank officials, state and federal employees join us there, and it was a really good time. We kicked off with some golf by some of the group Wednesday morning and then got started Wednesday after lunch. So if you weren't there, we missed you, and if you were there, we hope that you found it informative and educational and just a lot of fun. I know Dana and Cheryl, if Cheryl has joined us, will be perhaps sharing a little bit about the learning environment as well. But I got a chance to know some of you that I've only met through this webinar series, and I also got to know some of you better. So what Francis has put on the screen is a representation of my aha moment from that time that we spent in St. Paul. I wanted to just briefly mention some of the different programs that are going on in St. Paul. We did a tour of the community in the afternoon for a couple different reasons. Number one, to showcase the community a little bit that hosted us, but also just to learn what they were doing. I think, I don't know about all of you, but for me, I feel I do best by seeing and touching and experiencing. So the tour kind of helped facilitate and bring home some of those things that we had only heard about earlier in the afternoon. The City of St. Paul and the St. Paul Economic Development Corporation use a variety of programs. They use low-income housing tax credits. They use LB 840. They use tax increment financing. And among other things in the community, they're using some block grant and some trust fund dollars too to do some improvements. But we started off the day with our tour at the Civic Center, which, if you haven't been in St. Paul, was funded in part by the Civic and Convention Center Financing Fund, which it's a beautiful facility. I encourage you to take advantage of checking it out sometime when you're in St. Paul. But my aha moment started early in the afternoon. On the screen, center bottom, there's a picture of the Baumgars in St. Paul. A gentleman by the name of Bob attended the gathering, and he talked about he and his wife had gone to Columbus for a wedding, and he had to stop at the Baumgars. He lives outside of St. Paul. Thought what a wonderful facility it was, and why didn't St. Paul have one of these? So he left his wife sitting in the car for a little bit and proceeded to find the manager of Baumgars and ask for information about corporate Baumgars and who he could talk to about getting a Baumgars to St. Paul. So I don't know how his wife felt, but my husband's wife probably would have been panicking and a little stressed at that moment. But suffice it to say, his efforts brought a Baumgars to St. Paul. That's one story that came out of the afternoon. On our tour, the top center is the Kids Academy in St. Paul Public Schools. This originally was the Heritage Living Center in St. Paul. The owners of that facility built a beautiful new facility on the west side of St. Paul and left a vacant building. I believe efforts, and Judy, if you're on the phone, and correct me if I'm wrong, this building sat vacant for a little bit, and there was an individual in St. Paul who maybe thought about converting this into housing, but when the bottom line came to, it just was not financially feasible or effective to do so. So the St. Paul Economic Development Corp or the city approached Heritage Living and said, you know, would you be willing to give that building to us? And a deal was struck, and so then the Economic Development Corporation went out to the public and with a request for proposals, what you business owners or members of the public would do with this building. And as a result, a lady by the name of Mandy came forward and said, you know, I have an in-home daycare, thinking of expanding. And as a result, she now owns, I believe, the north half of this building, and the south half is owned by the St. Paul Public Schools for their preschool and after-school care program. So literally they divided the building in half using a common wall as the property line. So it's a neat success story. And then the 4 houses that you see pictured there are all located in Taylor subdivision. It is an area in the southwest part of St. Paul. In about 2005, I believe, the city paved and put sewer improvements into this area and assessed those improvements back to the owners of this vacant ground. Those assessments went largely unpaid, and interest was being incurred on those. And so at some point, the city and the Economic Development Corporation approached the owners of the property, which were largely all family members, and said, you know, what would you do? Would you consider giving this to the community? And so once again, a deal was struck. It became the ownership of the city and the Economic Development Corporation. Their intent was originally to divide this ground into 4 properties and sell off a lot at a time for redevelopment, but a developer in the community came forward and said, what would you do if I were to buy the whole piece of property from you? And as a result of him making that ask, we ended up with 4 beautiful new homes in the southwest part of St. Paul. According to the assessor, the valuation is approximately $950,000, and I've put the most recent valuations there. But it's a great success story in the southwest part of St. Paul. And so my aha moment was making the ask. You can see it there in the center. Just, you know, sometimes we sit back and we ponder and we wonder what would somebody do or say if we approach them. But in all of these situations, I learned how important it is to just make the ask and find out what an individual or a business might be willing to do. So if you haven't figured that out, that's my aha moment or my takeaway from our gathering in St. Paul. So with that, I'll turn it over to whomever is next.
All right, thank you, Lori. Such a simple concept, right? Just ask a question, see what happens. I really like that.
It is.
So we have a couple of attendees that went to the St. Paul gathering, and like to ask maybe Dana to share your experience, and I'll read Cheryl's off. You could just kind of let us know.
My biggest takeaway, I guess, is that obviously all of us in all the communities that attended, all community economic development or city clerks or otherwise, everybody was there obviously to see how to tackle the housing thing, because every economic development thing I go to, the greatest need across the state is housing. And you know, not having done this before, it's great to hear what other communities are doing, because sometimes it doesn't fit exactly into your mold, but you can get ideas and things from that. But my biggest part was when we talked to the 3 different housing developers. They were amazing in kind of conveying from their point of view what their expectations are of a community and what is needed for them to be enticed basically to build in a community. And for me, that was really huge. For one, making the contacts with them, so having some resources to know. I don't personally know any developers till that day, you know, and also to know that, you know, it's really hard financially for a developer to come into a community and do everything and sell the homes. So we here in Ravenna were working on putting in infrastructure so that would entice a developer or a builder. And, you know, it just confirmed my thoughts, my feelings on that, being new to this. And they said, absolutely. I mean, it's almost the expectation now to be able to, you know, for them to have some sort of incentive like that, to have, you know, the infrastructure put in before they would consider going into a community and doing that. And I think for me, that was the biggest takeaway. I mean, the connections with all the other communities, learning what all the great things that St. Paul has done and some of the things that Lori mentioned, all those were very impactful. But I think my biggest takeaway was you know, having the opportunity to talk to the developers and getting their side of it, and also having a list ready of potential home builders in your community. That was big for me. That's pretty much it. It was a great 2 days, I will say that.
Great. And I'll just read, Cheryl Carson was actually supposed to speak with us today. I know she wasn't able to make it, so I'm just going to read to you what she wrote back. So she said, I think just knowing what other communities are facing, how they were able to approach difficulties with solutions, make progress and resources we have in each other, to just talk and see if another community's approach may help our community is important. The comfort we can give each other, feedback, we're not alone in the housing struggle, and taking your time to make solid moves is okay. She also says that she really enjoyed the developer's perspective and the appraiser on stick-built versus manufactured values and the realities of where home sale prices are for different areas. So I think those are some really great testimonials. We're really excited to hear such positive feedback. So does anyone have questions for Lori, Dana, or Cheryl, who's not online? You can use either the chat box or unmute yourself and just use the audio. All right. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Let me get her slide up. Krista Mescher with USDA Rural Development. So after 3 years with the VA, Krista joined USDA Rural Development in 1997, working in the Beatrice and Lincoln area offices directly with the public processing, underwriting, and approving loans and grants. She became a member of the state office housing staff in the downtown Lincoln Federal Building in September of 2008, and will celebrate a 24-year federal anniversary this summer. Wow. Although no longer directly involved with loan processing, Krista works extensively with regulation, delivery, oversight, and outreach of the single-family housing programs, including the 502 Direct and 502 Guaranteed Home Purchase and 504 Repair programs. So I am going to turn this over. Hold on just a second. Oh, I think you're still on mute. Hold on just a second. Yeah, or you might have to unmute yourself there.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me get my presentation pulled up here. Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. Thanks, Frances, and I really appreciate being asked to speak today. As she said, I'm going to be celebrating an anniversary in August, so I'm kind of an old dog at this game. I didn't get to attend the gathering that you had recently, but we did have a representative there, Mike Lucas from our Kearney office, and I know he had a lot of good things to say about that. So sounds like it was really successful, and we appreciate being a part of these and getting to come in and share our programs with everybody. First of all, again, we are USDA Rural Development. I know a lot of you may be surprised, what are you doing in housing? When you think of USDA, you think of cows and crops. So a lot of people are really surprised to find out that we do indeed have home ownership programs and repair programs available. We, of course, don't have a budget for advertising. So this is how we get the word out on our program. You know, if we can speak at any types of, you know, these webinars, go out into communities, a lot of it is word of mouth. Just a little background on the agency. We started out way back in the 70s as Farmers Home Administration. Some of you that have been around for a while probably will recognize that. They split into two separate agencies in 1996. So they went to the Farm Service Agency and then Rural Development. So we've been in the housing business for a long time, but it's just not something that everybody knows exists. The big thing with our housing programs, our home purchase programs, is that it is 100% financing. So that is really our big wow factor. There really aren't any other programs out there right now that are 100% financing, unless you can qualify for like a VA loan, so if you're in the military. The FHA program, which is also great, but it does require a 3.5% down payment. So this is something that is really beneficial to people out in those rural communities. I think everybody knows a lot of people, especially the younger generation, doesn't have that savings like maybe families used to have. They don't have that down payment available. So this 100% financing is very attractive. and we can put a lot of people in homes, a lot of people that didn't think they could achieve the goal of home ownership. So that's kind of the big wow factor here. We do a lot of partnering. We work with lenders, realtors. We can partner our programs with NIFA, the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority. Sometimes we can get a little lesser of an interest rate when we partner with them. Our housing developers, our nonprofit organizations. Our programs do work with a lot of the programs that are out there, the down payment or closing cost assistance program. We can work with the purchase rehab resale programs. So many different options that we can partner with to get people into homes. Of course, we partner with DED, the Federal Home Loan Bank. They, throughout the year, have a grant that we can partner with to get people into homes. Assistive technology, HUD, lots of others, but we're always looking for partners and partnerships and way to build these and get this word out into the communities and get these programs out to the people that need them. What is affordable housing? So what we're basically talking about here, housing is typically considered affordable when it costs no more than 30% of a household's income. So we too have kind of an initiative on the workforce housing. I know that's a big hot topic in the state right now. And that is definitely kind of the area that we're falling into here, that 30% of household income. Okay, so let's take a look here. What is the meaning of rural for the single family housing programs in Nebraska? Again, you think, oh, the cows out in the field, USDA, not necessarily, but I thought this was funny. So all communities in Nebraska are eligible except for those major metropolitan areas. So we can't make loans right in the towns of Fremont, Grand Island, Hastings, Kearney, Lincoln, North Platte, Omaha, and South Sioux and Dakota City. Some of the areas surrounding those communities are eligible. For example, here in Lincoln, we can't loan right in Lincoln, but we can loan in Waverly. We can't loan right in Omaha, but we can make loans in Gretna or parts of Bennington. So some of the surrounding areas around those communities that aren't eligible are still eligible. But all the rest of Nebraska is an eligible area. Get a drink here quick. Okay, we do have two very distinctly different programs, and I'll go over each of these separately. This is just going to be a real high-level overview to kind of give you some information. But our first program is the 502 Direct program. Okay, highlights on the 502. Again, it is 100% financing, so no down payment required. The primary goal for the Direct program, of course, is affordable housing. We do have income guidelines that I'll show you here in just a moment. We do have to use all of the income in that household for our loan program to make sure that they qualify under the income eligibility. So if they have grandma living down in the bedroom or Uncle Joe down in the basement, those incomes have to be considered to make sure that they're program eligible. Does not have to be used for repayment, but just for program eligibility purposes. With the 502 Direct, we can do new construction, or we can do existing dwellings. So we've got some options there. We do have mortgage limits by county, and I will show you those here in just a moment. It's a 33-year loan. The current interest rate for May and June is 3.75%. But then for the Direct program, based on their household size and their income, we have what is called payment assistance or subsidy that can reduce that interest rate down as low as 1%. Now it can vary between that 1% and whatever that note rate is at the time they close their loan. So for example, 1% to the 3.75%. They can fall into anywhere in that range. And they do review income annually. So if their income goes up, their subsidy will go down. It'll never go over that full note rate that they signed at the time of loan closing. So for example, the 3.75, that's as high as that interest rate would ever go. Also, if they would lose some income, that subsidy might increase. So we have some different options there for people because we certainly want to get people into homes, but we also want them to remain successful homeowners. We want them to stay in those homes. We also have a lot of servicing options under these programs because, again, we want people to be successful. Under the direct program, we can finance repairs and closing costs as long as the appraisal supports it. So we can loan 100% up to that as improved appraised value. So we can give that appraiser a list of repairs that need to be done. And as long as that appraisal supports it, we can throw those repairs into the loan amount. If there's some extra room, we can go ahead and loan for some closing costs too. The direct program is originated by our USDA Rural Development offices. We do have a centralized delivery process. We have a lot less staff than what we once did. So we've had to kind of centralize a lot of the working with the applicants is done virtually, a lot of email, phone calls, but a lot of these loan processes, we don't get to sit face to face across a desk from people anymore. It's just kind of the way it works now, the way of the world. But it seems to work okay. We could have somebody applying for a loan back here in the eastern part of the state and working with somebody in the Scottsbluff office processing their loan. But again, that's pretty common these days. So the funding for this program is appropriated by Congress, so we get an allotment every year. This year we actually have more funds than we've had in a really long time. So we are asking for help from our partners to get the word out on these programs because we need to get this money spent. If this money isn't spent, utilized in Nebraska, it's going to go to other states that can use it. And I think we all probably know that Texas and California, they make a whole lot of loans. So we want this money to stay in Nebraska, and we want to use it here for our rural residents. Okay, here is a look at the income guidelines for the direct program. Just as an example, we'll use, if you don't see the county listed here on this list, then you're going to go down to the bottom and it'll be all other counties. So you'll see for all other counties in Nebraska, a household of 1 through 4 people could make up to $50,100. And then we could go up to 5 to 8 people. They could go up to $66,150. And different counties do have different ranges. You can take a look at all of those there. For some reason, Seward County is the highest in the state. The other thing I'll note on these income limits is these were effective May 17th of 2017. We do have new income limits that will be coming out any day. They told us that they're working on them and trying to get them finalized. We can't get an advance copy. We've begged, borrowed, and pleaded, but they won't give us an advance copy. So, but that's something to be looking forward here on the very near horizon, is that we will have new income limits coming out. We would expect them to probably go up a little bit. It's not always a whole lot, but typically from year to year, those income limits do go up a little bit. So coming soon. This is the mortgage limits for our direct program. This is just new. We changed these in May. We increased them. So you'll see here for Cass, Douglas, Sarpy, Saunders, Washington, Lancaster, and Seward County, we've increased that mortgage limit up to $215,000. And then all other Nebraska counties are $195,000. That's a pretty significant increase from what we had before. And what we're really hoping is that we might encourage some additional new construction in the state. We really haven't done a lot of new construction. It's pretty tough to get, new construction done under our previous mortgage limits. We wish we could just make these as high as we possibly could, but we have to have some rationale behind why we make them what we do. So this is a really good increase from what it was, and we really are hoping that this will, spur maybe some new construction under this direct program. This is just a look at how our offices are set up within the state. You'll see here in Lincoln, we have the Lincoln Field Office, and we have Jill and Rebecca there. Rebecca also speaks Spanish. So if we have any Spanish applicants, Rebecca can come in and kind of help us out. We have an office in Norfolk, which is Janelle, an office in Kearney, which is Mike Vukas that I mentioned earlier that was at the gathering. And then in Scottsbluff, we have Tammy and Deb. So this is basically our application processors for the whole state of Nebraska. I actually work in the federal building in the state office, so I don't actually process, but I do a lot of speaking and outreach and those items and help behind the scenes. If applicants want to apply for the direct program, we do have a pre-qualification form. It's located on our website. I've got that a little later in the presentation here. But it's just a one-page information sheet that they can fill out, and then there's an authorization form that they'd have to sign too. They can email it or mail it or fax it in. One of our specialists will be assigned this pre-qualification packet. They'll do a review on it, and within 5 to 7 business days, that potential applicant will have an answer, either, yes, it looks like you're going to qualify for this program, and they'll go ahead and get the big full-blown application packet out to them. Or if there's troubles, they will go ahead and pull an in-file credit report just to kind of see, because a lot of people don't even know what's on their credit. If there's any problems on there, they'll discuss them with them, see if there's any way that they can get those things cleared up. If it's not something they can do right now, they can always come back and reapply. We haven't put them through the whole application process that way. They can do this pre-qualification first. So it's kind of a nice tool. If they want to go ahead and apply, they're perfectly welcome to do that. We aren't going to discourage it, but we do like them to do this pre-qual if they really don't know what's on their credit, or if they're going to have enough repayment ability or what have you. So that's a bit on the direct program. The second program that we have is our guaranteed program. Now this is our big program. We do a lot of loans, 1,000 plus a year under this guaranteed program. This program, where the other one was the funds were appropriated from Congress, this program is budget neutral. So it does not rely on taxpayer dollars. We have some fees involved with this program, so it's basically self-supporting program. So we have a pretty continuous flow of funding for this program. Usually we'll have just a really short time at the beginning of our fiscal year, which is in October, when they have to get funds loaded into the system. But other than that, it's a pretty steady stream of money for this one. Highlights on our guaranteed program. Again, this one also is 100% financing, no down payment. This one is not just for first-time home buyers. Our direct program, generally, the majority of it is first-time home buyers. If they already own an acceptable home, they aren't going to qualify under our direct program. There are some exceptions to that. If it's not functionally adequate, if it's too small or deteriorating, we can go ahead and make a loan. But under this program, the guaranteed, we have, I always call them repeat offenders, which isn't really the best way to say it, but they come back and use this program over and over. They can also refinance, which isn't a lot of that going on right now with the interest rates going up. But this program gets used a lot by repeat homeowners. It is made through approved lenders, so those are basically banks that participate in our program. Again, under this program, we do have income eligibility requirements. I'll show you those in just a sec here. And again, we do have to use all the income in that household. So all the household members, we have to take a look at their income for eligibility. This loan is a 30-year fixed rate loan. The interest rate is negotiable with the lender, but there is a maximum cap that we impose. That's the highest that they can charge. There is a 1% guarantee fee. It's 1% of the loan amount, but that can also be financed. So we can actually make a 101% loan under this guaranteed program. A borrower can choose to pay that. They can choose to pay a part of it, or they can finance the whole thing. There is a 0.35% annual fee. That's a lot like mortgage insurance, but at a way lesser rate than what they charge for mortgage insurance. And again, those fees, that 1% and that 0.35, are what keep the program funded throughout the year. Under our guaranteed program, there is no maximum mortgage limit. Where the direct had the mortgage limits of $195 to $215, there is no mortgage limit on this program. It's basically whatever the applicant can afford, what their ratios will support. Again, under this program, we can finance necessary repairs and eligible closing costs up to that appraised value. And we can participate with NIFA on this program, as I'd mentioned before. We can come in and get a less interest rate, especially with the rates rising now. I think we'll probably see more and more NIFA loans partnering with this program. NIFA's been a really great partner for us. So here is an example of, or the actual, I should say, income limits for the guaranteed program. These are very modest, very moderate income limits, a household of 1 through 4. If you look at the all other counties, just for the sake of ease here, $78,200 for a household of 1 through 4, and then a household of 5 through 8 can go up to $103,200. And that kind of varies anywhere from the $78,000 up to about $119,000, depending on county. And again, these were effective last May. So again, we'll expect some new income limits to hit the presses just any day now, and we'll see what that brings us. As far as the guaranteed properties, they do have to be considered residential. The one caveat here is we can loan on acreages under this program. It can't be any farm-related, income-producing land or operation. It does have to be a true residential acreage. But that is kind of a neat little thing about this program. A lot of the homes we finance are going to be located in your, rural communities, but we can also do some acreages outside those communities under this program. There's a lot of people out there that want acreages, so that is available. Okay, if somebody wants to apply for this program, we do have a list on our website of our approved lenders. We actually have 2 different lists. We have the Nebraska Guaranteed Approved Lenders, which is always the first one we advertise because we kind of like to have our business stay in Nebraska if we can. There is also another list. It is nationally approved lenders. So both of those lists have great lenders on them. The borrower or the applicant can pick the lender of their choice. We don't really steer them towards any particular ones. Some of them might have a relationship built with a lender already. And as long as they're on our approved lender list, they can go to that lender and start the process. Basically, that borrower works with the lender, and then the lender is the customer of rural development. They submit a package to us. We just review it to make sure that they've underwritten it to our regulations, and then we place a guarantee on the loan to that lender. So there's a 90% guarantee if that borrower would default. We would pay the bank back up to 90%. So it's a really great deal for our banks, and they really love the program and utilize it a lot. Here's just kind of a fun comparison chart. We took a $100,000 loan and broke it down to just show the differences in the programs. We did a comparison with FHA, the RD guaranteed loan, the RD guaranteed with NIFA, the RD direct loan at the full note rate of 3.75, and then the RD direct with the full subsidy at 1%. So you can I won't go through the whole chart because you can all see it here. But the first thing I'll point out is the down payment. Of course, with the FHA, it does require a 3.5% down payment, so they would have to have $3,500 from the get-go. You'll see with all of our RD programs, 0 down payment. Again, that's what makes this program really awesome. You'll see the different upfront fees. The upfront fees on our guaranteed program are less than what the FHA are, and of course on the direct, we don't have any upfront fees. The mortgage insurance, again, our guaranteed program, we're going to be less on that than what FHA is running, and on the direct, we don't have any mortgage insurance. And then you can just take a look at the bottom line there. On a $100,000 loan for FHA, their payment would be $580. With the guaranteed, it would be $556. With a NIFA guarantee, it would be $521. With a full note rate direct loan, it would be $441. And if they qualified for the full subsidy at 1%, it would be $296. So you can just kind of take a look at the comparison there and see how those different products pan out. Here's our website. It's www.rd.usda.gov/NE for Nebraska. You'll see in the green box there, there's a link that will take you to each of the key programs, our single family guaranteed, our single family direct, and then we do also have a single family housing repair for loan and grants, which I'm not spending a lot of time on today because I think we're focusing a little bit more on the home purchase. But we do have this repair program that's for very low income owner occupied homes. Repairs that they need. We have loans and grants that are available. There's some income repayment formulas that we have to go through those to make determinations, but just know that those are available too, even though I won't spend a lot of time today. One of our initiatives right now is we are looking for loan packagers. So this is basically a partnership that we're looking to form with qualified third parties. They come in and package home loans for our 502 program. The packagers do get a fee for any loans submitted and closed. So it's kind of a nice little money-making process there for our partners. We do go ahead and determine those loans eligible once they're sent to us and packaged, but the packagers will send it to an intermediary for a quality control review before it would even come to us. And then we underwrite and fund the loan. So just kind of putting that out there just to let everybody know that we are looking to build partnerships with loan packaging. And then our other big push right now is we are doing community meetings. So we're going out into communities and trying to set up meetings to get the word out. We've done several of these in the last 2 years. This year we've already been to Hickman. We've got a meeting set up in Louisville. I believe we've got one set up for Wayne, and then we'll be traveling to Norfolk. We're trying to get something set up in Schuyler. There's really no method to the madness on how we determine which communities we go to. And if anybody has a need for us or wants us to come in and go through our programs with the community, we are more than willing to do that. Just, shoot me an email, and I'd be more than happy to get something lined up with any of you that could use these funding programs. They're great programs. So, and here again is our website, and that's pretty much it for my presentation. So I know Frances will have a question session here, so I will just turn it back over to her.
Okay, hold on just a second. All right, this is a great presentation, a lot of really useful content. Does anybody have any questions?
I covered it so good, there's no questions. Good.
I have a question for Krista.
Sure.
Krista, if somebody wants to host one of those community meetings, what do you expect of them? Can you give us?
Sure. Basically, we can't advertise these meetings. We don't have, the budget or anything. What we're asking from our partners is that they find us a place that we can host it, because you know what's available in your community. Our public information coordinator will do an invitation, and then she'll do a news release. We can't publish any news releases right now. Don't ask me why, we just can't. But we will send the invitation and the news release to the partner that's helping us set these meetings up. And then they can put those, in the paper. They can put them on any websites or social media or anything that they have. They probably know the means better to get the word out on these meetings. We give a couple of different options. We can do a noon meeting, and some of our partners do find somebody to sponsor a lunch that seems to bring people in, give them food, and they will come. We, of course, can't do any lunching because we are a government agency. So they do find sponsors. That's been very successful. The other option is we do like an after hours meeting, so like a 5:30 meeting. And we kind of leave it up to whoever we're working with to make the decision on what's going to go better, because they'll know their community a little bit better than we do. if you'll get more attendance at a noon meeting or a 5:30 meeting. A few years back, we just tried to do this all on our own. And we didn't get a lot of attendance. We really need those people in the communities to reach out to people. They know the people know them. They're a little more willing to come and just get the word out. So that's basically what we ask of any of our partners that do the community meetings, just a little help getting the word out.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? I think I unmuted everyone's speakers and a few of you muted them back up, so I'm guessing we might not have very many. All right, well, we could spend a few minutes doing a checkout today. It gives everybody the opportunity to have a discussion on maybe something interesting that they've learned today. I'm going to open up the floor once again, and if you don't have anything to share, you can just mute yourself back up.
I had a question on the local banks getting added to an approved lenders list.
Uh-huh.
How or who do they contact if they are not on that list to find out if they're eligible to be added?
You can shoot me an email. We have a packet that we have to send out. It's an application packet. So we can just email that out to you. Take a look at it. It'll detail everything that's required to get you to be an approved lender. So I don't know if my email was out there, but I will give it to you. It is, you'll see on the screen there how to spell my name, krista.metcher@ne.usda.gov. That is my email address. And just shoot me an email and tell me that you're interested, and I'll be more than happy to get a packet out to you to take a look at it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else have questions or anything they want to add, anything they want to bring up to discuss with any of the topics we covered today? All right, well, I think it's time to bring the meeting to a close. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining and participating, as well as thank our speakers for taking time out and passing on such great information. I strongly encourage any feedback on the HomeNE program. If you have topics or speakers in mind for future webinars, also if you have any suggestions for communities which to hold a future event, that's great too. For our next webinar, we will be discussing tiny homes with Nancy Strebel, so keep an eye out for the registration details. I'll be sending out Krista's presentation to all of the registrants, and if you'd like to review this session, we actually finally have our videos available on YouTube. The links are on our homepage, www.sked.us/HomeNE. And I think that's about it, unless anybody has any ending comments there. I think that was a great presentation. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.